go to the file, new project, new directory, then new project. Then you can name your directory as workshop intro and choose a place where you want to save your directory on your desktop. Then create project. Now we have new project in our, that is workshop intro to us. So any one of you is using desktop version and want to create a new project, you can ask any queries. I think all good. Yeah. Am I running so fast so you can interrupt me in between? Thanks, Amanda. Now let's move further to the coding part. See, we all have done this. We have created a new project. Now let's move. Now I have want to hand over to Amanda for our markdown and coding part. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Swati. Now I'll just share my screen if possible. All right, so you can see my DASA workshop workspace there. Just double checking, making sure that you can see the correct screen, that's all. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the R Markdown file format. Now, R Markdown is actually the force that brings together the text, the code, the results, and the plots. So you may be used to running RScript, but what we're going to do is actually open up a new file called R Markdown. Now, what this does is actually gives us a presentation format in either a HTML, a PDF, or a Word format. So we're going to type in the title and the author. Now, what happens here is that we actually set up the meta file for the which is this first 6 lines. So this is the title of intro to R. I'm the author. It was created today, and the output is going to be a HTML document. Now, how's everyone going with the R Markdown file?
So installing some packages for me here, Amanda.
Right. Okay. Now that's actually one of the necessary evils of R, where the benefits of the packages actually are tenfold, and it expands the R software. And but you do actually have to install packages, and you have to update them as well. So now I'll just explain a little bit more.
Mine is also installing packages right now. Could you just quickly tell us again what we have to do when we open the new document? Because I was focusing on the package installment.
Right. Okay. No worries. So we'll go to File, New File. Now you can have either an RScript, which is just your standard coding type script, or we're using an R Markdown file, which means that we're actually going to be able to publish the document in a very pretty format. And we're going to be able to add text and also add code and the results of the code. So it actually combines it all together in the one presentation. Now, if anyone has actually done a lot of reports in the past where you've done your results and your analysis and your output, and you've got graphs and charts, and then you make an update and then you forget to put it into the report, it can be a bit embarrassing. So the R Markdown file actually combines all this together into the one document, and every time you publish it, it actually updates. So there's no more copy and pasting. which is just absolutely fantastic. Now, I'll just give you a bit of an overview of the R Markdown file while we're waiting for the packages to upload. So we have this white space, which is, and lines 1 to 6 is the metadata, which just instructs R what to do when the document is knitted together and published. We also have this grey lines on rows 8 to 10. This is about actually setting up the R chunk and how to actually present the R Markdown file. Now, you'll see here that we've got a little bit of hashtags, R Markdown, and a little bit of text in white. Then we've got a grey chunk with some little bit of coding there. And, you know, it sort of sets up the structure of this file. Now, I'm going to do this now, and I'm going to knit the document so I can show you guys what happens to the R text, to the R Markdown file. So I'm just going to knit the current document. Oh, and I should have saved it. You can either choose to knit this document or choose not to, and we can knit it again at the end. All I'm doing is using it as a demonstration purposes. Okay, so what we've got here, you can see that we have in the metadata file, we have intro to R as a title, the author is me, the date, and then we have this information here on lines 8 to 9 are actually not presented in the final document because of the code here that says include equals false. But you know, we can work on that a little bit later. This is just about a knowledge base at the moment. So R Markdown, all of this document here and this text is actually presented, and I'll see where my code actually went. So this information here is actually presented here. So R Markdown text formatting actually uses different sections to be able to create the bold text, links to and hyperlinks. Now you'll see here that on lines 18 to 19 is a code chunk, and it's presented as a code chunk in the published document. So one of the things that we can do here, and that you'll be able to see, is this line of code, we can actually run it. And so we're presenting a summary of cars. Now, cars is a data set that's actually inbuilt in R, and it's very similar to the Star Wars data set that we're going to be using, which is already established and built in the software packages. So you'll see there that the actual Markdown file has the summary here, and it's published here. Similar thing with the plots. Okay, so that's just an overview of what an R Markdown document is, and we're actually going to use it based on our Star Wars data set in our coding. So let's get ready. Now, if anyone, what we're going to do is we're actually going to delete. Actually, we'll get rid of that one there. And we're going to delete lines 12 down to lines 31. We don't need them in our document. Now, line 12 now is a text line. And so what we're going to do is we are going to insert an R chunk. So we're going to insert the actual coding component. So we can either insert a new code chunk here for R, and it actually sets up the structure of the code. So now, is everyone with me? Let me know if you need me to slow down or you know, if you've got any issues. Okay, so as we've all said in the past, we need to install our packages first up. We're going to use a few packages, and so we're going to use the code install.packages, and we're going to use Tidyvers. Now, install.packages Tidyvers, the name of the package has to be in quotes. And what I did there is, just as a matter of habit, I did Control Enter to run the line, just straight up like the script. And what's happening is that the Tidyvers package is actually installing. So you'll see that that's actually still running, and we'll just need to wait for this one to run because it will take a long time.
Amanda, I have a question. If I've already run the package, installed the package, I just need to load from the library, right?
That is a very good point, Imran. Thank you. If you have installed the Tidyvers package into this project, then you won't need to run it, or sorry, you won't need to install it. You only need to load the libraries. Absolutely.
Yeah,
correct.
thank you.
Okay, looks like it's still running. Oh, jeepers.
Amanda, what's the code to use if you are just running it where you've already got it installed?
Okay, so what I will do is I'll just put that into here. Okay, so it's running in there. So we'll just go down here. We call it library and Tidyvers. Once you actually have installed the package, you just load the library. Now, when you'll notice that the library code doesn't have the quotation marks. And we'll see that this the Tidyvers package has been installed. Now, we don't want to install it again. So we're going to comment it out with the hashtag at the front. We do not want to run it again. Now, one quick way that you can check if the package is actually installed is just to double check that in the packages section in this quadrant, if we have the Tidyvers, and I went past it. Okay, so what's happened here is that we've got the package installed. We haven't loaded the library. Now, because the install.packages line of code has been commented out, I can just run this code again, run the current chunk, and it will run the library. And then now it's saying that the Tidyvers package has been loaded into this project. Okay, so with the packages in the code chunk, you can either Control Enter at the end of the line, or you can run the code chunk here with a little triangle. So run current chunk. And what I am going to do, I'm going to drop this code into the chat box as well, because we are also going to use knitter, janitor, and ggplot. Okay, so I've just put the code into the chat. You can either feel free to type it or copy and paste it. So we'll run those. And we'll also do the libraries. Now, one of the things that you may see is that R has like an intuitive text. So it will actually suggest some of the packages and some of the code for you to actually enter. So we're going to call that ggplot. and you can just click on the code to run that. And library janitor. Okay, right. Thanks for the message, Petra. Just let me know where you're at, and so then we can go through a few. I can go through back over a couple of things.
I'm getting the installing package intro cloud error install package. Should I just?
Okay, so can you just drop a copy of that into the chat, please?
This here was what I had last, and I wrote it's not working.
Okay.
This is the message. I'll copy the message I'm doing.
Okay.
Maybe I'll just try.
Okay, what package were you looking at installing?
I'm just trying to copy you exactly step for step, yeah. And so.
Okay, so was that installing the Tidyvers package?
Yes.
Okay. Can you please just put a copy of the line into the copy of the code into the chat?
I thought I did. So from my line 13 to my line 19 was my last little bit of code that I copied, and which is this. That's from my line 13. So my line 13 to 19 looks like yours.
Yeah.
When I ran it.
Okay. So what may have happened, and see how there's the pound tag or the hashtag in front of install packages. So that's been commented out. So if your Tidyvers has not been installed, then you won't be able to run the library. So just remove that that hashtag and just run it again and see if it works.
Okay, just move it again. But I did go into packages and check as you instructed, but I'm just going to do what you directed me to do. So remove the hashtag. Just going to follow you, yeah?
Remove the hashtag and run it again and see how you go.
But I keep on also getting a notification that advises me updating loaded packages. One or more of the packages to be updated are currently loaded. Restarting prior to install. So should I do a restart?
Click on. I usually say no, but you know, when we have a little bit more time, we can probably say yes when you're doing it.
On my own some other time, yeah. I just didn't want to fall too far behind. Okay, thank you. It's working.
Okay.
It's running.
Right.
Okay.
Amanda, do you have a typo in line 14 on Nitter in your quotes?
Okay. Now it's interesting because Nitter is only a single quote, but it worked on my desktop, and so I'm just wondering whether or not that might cause a problem. And see, I get that. Do you want to restart? And I say no, and it still just carries on. If I'm doing it, you know, at home and I've got no time pressures, then I say yes. And so Nita is actually starting that process now, and hashtag it out. Now, we actually want to comment out these install packages in this code because we do not want it to be installing when we're trying to knit the R Markdown file. But we do need the libraries to be active. Okay, so is there any other issues that we've got, or is we all able to work through some of those issues?
I have a very basic question, because when you say library has to be activated, what exactly that means? We have to run the library. I can understand when you install the packages, but when we have to run the library, what does that supposed to mean?
Yeah, so with the packages, you install them into this project. So, so R knows what you're going to get. But what you need to do is you need to load the library to be able to have all the functions available. So installing the package is just having it sit there, but loading the library, which is this line of code here, is saying, yes, we want to make those functions available to us in this project. Now, you see that in lines 13 to 16, I have the hashtag and I've commented those install packages out. That is because once I've installed them once, I don't have to install them again. But I have to load the libraries each time. So if I close down this file and then I open it up again, I actually have to activate the libraries. I have to load them in again each time. So that's why I'm keeping them here, but I'm not putting the comment, I'm not commenting them out. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so now if there's any, unless there's any other questions, I can move on to the next, to the actually looking at the data. All right. So what we're going to do down here is we're just going to mark in a couple of lines and we're going to go load Star Wars. Now, if I try to load Star Wars here, it's not going to do anything. So if I look at view Star Wars, and I try to run this by using Control Enter, nothing happens. Because this is a text section of the document. What we need to do is we need to make it a coding section. So by doing that, we put in our 3 backticks, our curly bracket, our curly bracket, and you can see now that it's started to be grayed out. So it's identified this as a code chunk. Now, when you start a code chunk, you have to close it. So our 3 backticks, and that closes our code chunk. All right, so we all with us? And what we're going to do is we're going to view Star Wars. Oh. Now, why can't we view Star Wars? Have I actually loaded my libraries? I didn't load my libraries. Okay, and let's see what happens. There we go. See, it happens to everyone, doesn't it? Now, has everyone got access to seeing the Star Wars data set? All right, cool.
No, would you please repeat that?
Okay, so what I've done is I've created a code chunk to actually view the Star Wars data set. Now, Star Wars, the information is actually already embedded within R. And so we don't have to pull a data set from the internet somewhere. We can do that at one of our next workshops, but this time around, we're just going to use an inbuilt data set. Okay, Ada, what you've got an error message. What message was that? Okay. Okay, so error in updating loaded packages. All right, so when you're saying, when it says ask you to restart R, just click on the no. And you will get it 4 times because you're actually installing 4 packages. Okay, all right. I'm actually just wondering whether or not we need to put a couple of people into a breakout room just to be able to help them with the install packages. Or would you like to go through the process again? So I just need to double check how many people are having issues with installing the packages. Please feel free to call out.
Hi, could you again repeat these installed packages?
Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is the code that we need to do. Okay. And I'm going to copy it into the chat. Okay, so we're installing Tidyvers, Knitr, Janitor, and ggplot2. Okay, so all I want you to do is just copy and paste that text into an R chunk. And it may actually be beneficial to try just one line at a time, where you can just put your cursor at the end of one line and then Control Enter and just run the selected line. Okay. All right, Ada, how are you going?
I'm trying to do, I did what you advised to do, so just waiting to see what is happening.
Okay, all right, is it running through?
No, I actually got the same error message.
Okay, all right, so what we might do is we might just progress with the workshop. And then when we complete the workshop, then I'll stay back and you and I can work through it together. Is that okay?
Sure, thank you.
All right, no worries. Okay, so what I'm going to do, because I've already installed all of this stuff, I'm just going to comment this out. And leave the libraries. Okay, so all of the people that are having trouble installing packages, I'm more than welcome for you guys to stay at the end of the workshop, and we'll work through some of those issues. Unless Swati or Trung, if you're able to assist them during the workshop, that would be great. Okay. Now, okay, thanks, Swati. So we're going to view the Star Wars data set. Now, we run the view Star Wars. Now, are we able to see the data set of the Star Wars data?
Yes.
All right, excellent. So we've got some people that have had some success, which is fantastic. All right. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, I'm actually really lazy, and I really don't like typing out too much all the time. So I'm going to assign Star Wars to something a little bit shorter. Now I'm going to assign the Star Wars data set to a data, the name data. So we're just going to type in data. Star Wars. And if I could learn how to type, I would save myself so much time. Now, what this has done is actually created in our environment. It's created the data table here. It's not a variable, it is a data frame. So it's a table data frame. Now, you'll see if we click on Star Wars, we have the details here. And we have, if we click on data, and you have to click on the name data. You don't click on the little blue triangle because it just gives you a description of what's going on. So click on the name data. And you'll see that the Star Wars and the data set is exactly the same. All we've done is renamed it data. Okay. Now, what we also need to do as because we're fantastic data analysts, we actually need to understand what is the structure of our data set. We actually need to learn, as part of the data wrangling process, we need to actually learn, we need to understand the data set, what we're working with, and what needs to be organised and cleaned and analysed. So to do that, we are going to we're going to look at the structure of data. So what this tells us is that it gives us an indication that the data set is a tibble or a data frame of 87 rows and 14 columns. And you'll see over here that we've got 87 observations and 14 variables. Now, if we wanted to actually count all of this, we could actually count all of the 87 observations and the 14 columns. So we know that that data set is all the same. Now, the structure of the data, we have column names, which are characters. So the name is a character, the height is an integer, the mass is a number, and hair color is a character. So, but then we get this real funny thing here. we get a film is a list of 87. Now, I don't know what that means at the moment, but it's sort of, it's different to the first lot of the data, of the first variables. All right, so how are we going? Has everyone been able to have a look at their data set?
Yes.
Okay, so Lee, which the Star Wars list?
I literally just caught up. I don't know what I did, but I got to the list where that you showed us before. I don't know with all the errors, but I have the right list now. But I didn't know what to click on that Star Wars list.
Okay, so what we do is, so we're going to load the Star Wars data set. Now this is just text. Now the Star Wars data set is inbuilt into the packages already. So all we need to do is within a code chunk, we need to view Star Wars.
Yeah.
And what that does, and I'll just show you here now.
Is to open the second thing.
I'll just run that. So if we run that one.
Yep, it opened up that. Yeah, that's what I got exactly.
Yep. Okay. Excellent. And then what I like to do is just rename. Well, we're assigning the data set Star Wars to a data table called data, which comes up here in our environment.
Okay.
So then we know that this is here, that's available for us to work with. Now we could call that anything. We could just rename it Star Wars, but you know, if you really wanted to be pedantic about what's in your environment. Now, have you been able to get to look at the structure of the data, STR data?
I think so, yes. I already ran that one as well.
Okay, excellent. All right. Now, what we're going to do is actually do a little bit of analyzing what's the data about. Now, when we look at the data, it's actually too big to see, and you know it gets tiresome. So one of the things that we can do is look at head. Now, head data. So what we're doing is we're using the function head of the data set data, and you can tell that that's a table. And we are just wanting to look at the first 10 rows. So what this does, it actually gives us an overview of the first 10 rows. So it makes it a little bit more, just a perspective of what's actually happening. Although it doesn't talk of, now you see in here that we've got the type of data, the type of variable underneath each of the names. So eye color is a character, birth year is a double type of value, sex is a character, gender is a character. And then we go down here to films, and they're the lists, and the vehicles are lists, and starships are lists. Now, when we look at the data itself, we can see here that the film is actually a combination of The Empire Strikes Back, The Revenge of the Sith. Now, this is what's called a nested list. And fortunately, it's not within the scope of our our workshop tonight. So it's getting up towards the more advanced ways of working with the list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what all good analysts do, and that I'm going to completely ignore it because I'm not going to work out how I'm going to deal with that. So I'm going to just remove that from our list. I just don't want to ever have to look at that right now. So I'm going to say this data, and I'm going to select the variables. And I'm going to select columns 1 to 11. And I'm just going to run that one. Now you'll see over here in our environment that the data now has 87 observations with 11 variables. And if we look at our data set, we only have 11 total columns. And all of those nested variables and nested columns are actually not there anymore. So we don't have to deal with them until another workshop. We'll come back to them at a later date. Okay, so has everyone got their data set now with 87 observations and 11 variables? And feel free just to call out, this is an interactive workshop.
Can you copy paste that line for us?
Sure, I can.
Yes, thanks.
Now that will only work if you've renamed your Star Wars dataset to data. Now, if you haven't, all you have to do is do this and change the name of the dataset to Star Wars. And that would be exactly the same. So what we're doing is saying from the data table Star Wars, select columns 1 to 11 and assign them to a new data set called data. And while we also have, we can use head to look at the first 10 rows, we can use a function called tail to look at the last 10 rows or the last 15 rows or however many that we want to look at. Now, this is really a really useful function when you have arranged your data set in a particular order, you know, from lowest to highest, or something which we'll use as well later on. Okay, so moving on. Now, one of the useful things about the data analyzing is that we actually need to understand what we're looking at. What are we dealing with? How many things are we looking for? So let's insert another archer. And we have a column in here. So we have our name, height, mass, hair color, gender, homeworld, species. Okay, so how many, let's have a look at the counts of species. So if we use, and I'm going to put in a little bit of code, and I want to know whether you guys recognize this or not. So data. So we're using our data frame, and we are going to pipe. Now, does anyone recognize this code or this function? It's a percent, and I think that's greater than, and percent again. That's, yep, piping. So has anyone seen that? You're familiar with that? So what it means? Sorry?
No, not familiar.
Okay. This is actually a really, really useful function, because what it means is use the data frame and work with these functions on that data frame. So we are going to say count, and we are going to say homeworld species and homeworld. And we'll have sort equals true. Now let's talk about this. So what we're saying here is we're going to look at the data set called data, and we want to count the number of species and the number of different homeworlds. So we have data. So how many different species do we have in this data set, and where do they come from? So, and let's just take out sort equals true. If you guys have typed it in already, just feel free to leave it. But I'm just going to run this and see how it goes. So what we have here is we have a table now that says the species and the homeworld. So we have droids that have come from Naboo, Tatooine, and one droid doesn't have a homeworld. There's a missing variable there. Sorry, there's 3 droids that have missing variables, 2 droids that come from Tatooine, and 1 droid that comes from Naboo. Now, it's, you know, a little bit, we don't know what the rest of this data is. I mean, we can look at it, but it's not very useful really in this format. So when we say sort equals true, and we run it again, then it actually orders it in a particular order. So the highest numbers at the top. So the most number of humans come from Tatooine in this data set. So if we order by homeworld or species, we get alphabetical, but you know, we can't really create anything from here. You know, we don't understand, you know, how many droids is there. You know, we'll have to go through and count them all up. But by doing the data count species, homeworld sort equals true, we know that the you know, we get them all in order. And so we can see that there's quite a lot of them with only 1 instances. Now, this is the interesting thing about the piping function. Remember up here where we did the data and we used this assignment function? So what we're saying is we want to actually use this information and assign it to the data. We want you to call it. We want you to save it. Whereas the piping function hasn't saved, it's processed the function and done the calculations and we have a result, it doesn't actually save it anywhere else. Now, we can also do data count species. And again, we actually get the fact that there is now 35 humans, regardless of where they come from. It's actually in that data set. But there's nothing else. Nothing else has changed. It is, our data set still has 87 observations. So it's just extracting the information, running through the process. So that's where the piping function comes into play. Now, just to show you here, so we can actually call this human and assign. Actually, I'll do it this way. Human and assign there. Now, what we do, if we run that line of code, it actually then creates a new data frame over here, and it's stored all of that information into the data set called human. Now, if we click on that and have a look at it, we have species and the count of the species. Okay, so is there any questions around the count and the data, the piping and the assignment? Okay. So then what we're going to do is just move on and actually do some filtering, which is another function within the Tidyvers framework, because we may only want to look at a particular variable or a particular observation. So what we're going to do is go down and insert another archer. And we should probably save our file occasionally because we don't want to lose any of this information. So we're going to use the filter function. We're going to work off the dataset data. We're going to filter for home world. If I could remember how to spell home world, it'll be great. Equals Tatui. Now I'll put this into the chat for you. Okay, so what's happening here? We are actually saying we want to filter out the dataset data for all of the instances where home world is equal to Tatui. And if we run that, we'll find that we have the home world is equal to Tatui.
Sorry, why is there two equal signs?
It's part of the text in relation to the set assignment functions. So where when you have a Venn diagram, you look at and or not. Is it intersecting? Is it not intersecting? And so the part of the syntax is to say that this is equal to. Some of the other questions are such as, we could say filter data height is, I can't remember which one's less than or equal to. And let's have a look at some data. Height is less than or equal to 100. So what we do here, see how we've got the two characters to actually to identify that it is a not or an and, or to be able to do that filtering process. I know I haven't explained it very well, but it just helps having that. By having it as an equals, it means that you're not missing a greater than sign or a less than sign. Now, one of the things in relation to this, you'll see that homeworld doesn't have any quotation marks. Tattooing does. So homeworld is the variable. It's the name of the column. Tattooing is the string that's actually that we're looking for. And we're looking for a character. You'll see that in this filter line that the 100 is actually not in quotation marks, because it is a number and it's identified as numerical. Okay. Now, again, we're just performing the functions. We haven't assigned them to anywhere. We haven't changed any of our data sets in our environment. We're just looking at and analysing the data. Okay, so Shadi, I think you're probably missing some quotation marks.
I actually copied and pasted what you put in the chat box.
Then it's probably my typing. I do apologise for that.
Oh, good, it's okay.
Did you, is it fixed now?
Actually, no.
All right. Have you run the data? You're using the data set?
All is good. Even I could run the second filter, but I just couldn't basically run the other one, the first one.
The text one. Okay. Can you just double check on your data set and make sure you do have homeworld?
Of course, I'm going to do that.
Yep.
Mm. Yes, I do have it.
All right. Okay, excellent. Now, do you know, I'm just looking at the time.
It's okay.
We've been at this for an hour and a half. And isn't it amazing what you can and can't do in such a short time? So I would really encourage everyone. We have got quite a lot more things that we can do in relation to using various nesting filters, using the pipes, to be able to arrange and sort and group by, and using lots more different functions within the Tidyvers framework. And also dealing with these pesky NAs and missing variables. So I would really like to encourage you guys to come along to the workshop that we're holding next week, the same Wednesday night at 6 p.m. We'll be able to get straight into a lot more coding, straight up, because we will be able to, everyone would have already set up their RStudio accounts. All of the package would have been installed, and we'll be able to just go straight into analysing the data set and learning about the process. Now, is there anyone here who hasn't been able to get their packages installed and their system running properly? Because as I said, that we would be able to stay behind and help you guys, and we'll do the whole sharing of screens and actually see what's happening with each of you. So please feel free to do that. Now, also, I can't believe how quickly that time went. And guess what? And I am going to knit this. Let's do this. Let's knit the file. So that's that little round ball. It's actually a ball of wool with a knitting needle in it. And I see that there's quite a lot of discussion around the next session, and I'll get Swati to come on and just explain what's going to happen with that. And so what's happened now is that if I open this in the browser, I have now created a HTML file with all of my coding, including my typos, that has a look at the results and Star Wars projects. Now, I'm going to show, in relation to the questions, Joanne, I will show you a screen at the completion of the presentation, and you'll get a QR code where you can sign in. So we have our Star Wars data set. This is all of the code and the results of that code. That will remind me to put on a restriction to stop that code from actually being present in the file. Head data. Then we looked at selecting the data with our columns and only the 11 columns. Counting our species. So you can see where we've got our assignment of our data sets and our filtering. And this will actually look a lot better when we include all of the text and formatting and some plots of what our analysis is. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set up this slide. I put it on the wrong screen. Okay, full screen. How do I do that?
Amanda, you'll have to share the other screen.
Ah, here we go. I just swapped the presenter view. So, okay, so Meg, I'll show you again the knit to PDF very shortly. So everyone, this is how you can contact us. So our email is DASA.VicUni@gmail.com. Drop us a line, send us some feedback. Also, if you have any questions, we're all free to, happy to help out and assist. Also, we have our newsletter that is being promoted and sent out. And Swati, can you please just put the registration for the link for the registration to sign up as a member into the chat, please?
Sure.
Excellent. Is that the one that you've already put in there?
No, just now I have put a feedback form link.
Okay.
You can provide your honest feedback of what the workshop.
Constructive, honest feedback.
Yes.
And remember, guys, that this is only the start of the journey to become data Jedis. I love Star Wars. Now, let's go back to the code. Oh, no. Oh, here we go. Now, Meg, I did mention to you that I'll show you again how to knit it. This is this little blue button here. So it's knit the current document.
Yeah, I've got that, but and it's fine if I need to HTML, but I'm just wondering how to knit it to PDF. If I select knit to PDF, it just comes back with an error message.
Yeah, okay. So in the output, in the metadata at the top, it was set up as HTML document originally. Now, I don't know if this works. If we change that to PDF, can we actually knit that? I don't know if it's going to work or not. No, because what we actually have to do is when you start the Markdown file, when you set it up and where you're typing in the metadata. So if I start a new file now, file, new, and a new Markdown file. This section here, where we've got HTML ticked, you just click on PDF.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Now, I'm sure that there's somewhere within the system where you can change the RMD file from HTML to PDF, but I'm not familiar with it. This is the only way at the moment, but I can certainly check it out and get back to you next week.
Oh, that's all right. I was just more curious than anything.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. No worries. Excellent. So is there any other questions before we close up for tonight?
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about what your successive sessions will do? Just to help me out in regards to what I can expect, because I come from a programming background.
Okay.
So this wasn't exactly difficult, but it would be good to go through, because I haven't done R before. I have seen it, but I haven't done it before. It would be good to go through specific syntax and that sort of thing as well.
Thanks for that. It's I'm not a programmer, and I'm actually using R to be able to do the data analysis, to be able to visualize the story and gather the information out of the data sets. So what we're going to be using in the future is looking at various packages within R to be able, and what functions are available to be able to manipulate, to tidy the data, to work with missing variables, and to be able to create the visualizations and representations of the data set. So, for example, we'll be able to do graphs of the specific, probably got something here. No, I don't want to give away what we have planned. So what we'll do, just so that you get a real understanding of the future of, we'll actually include it in the newsletter. So sign up for the newsletter and we'll send out an email with the program for the upcoming workshops that we have planned. But it is about looking at the packages and how we can use the packages and functions to manipulate the data and to be able to plot and graph them. Yeah, I hope that goes some way to be able to answering your question, but I'll definitely get a program out in the next few days. But the idea is that it's an introduction series.
Amanda, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, sure, Rita.
Yeah, I was stuck with the data only. So is it possible for you to share the codes?
Yes, yes. In the newsletter, we will actually send out the repository for the code and some instructions on how you can get that from GitHub, and you can download it and upload it into your workspace.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. That's actually a great idea. We'll take that on board about having the introductions, including information on the libraries that we'll actually be using. Yeah, for sure. That's a really good thing.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rita. Okay, so is there any other questions? Any other help that we can help you out with? And everyone got to install their packages and load their libraries, and they're going to be ready for next week?
Yes.
Excellent. I'm really pleased. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. I really appreciate your participation and your enthusiasm around R and the packages. And we're going to be able to hit the ground running next week and actually get something really exciting. And we'll get some ggplots and some real analysis of the workshops. So thank you very much. And if you're in Melbourne, stay safe and continue lockdown. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Swati. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're going to send out the link for next week, is that correct?
Yes. Red, have you signed up for the newsletter?
I've done that now, yes.
Yeah, okay, yes, it'll be in the newsletter. We'll get that sent out for sure.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Yes, please. Excellent. And I don't want to stop the... All right, everyone's leaving. I don't want to stop the meeting until I actually download the chat. Yeah, VicUni stopped it. Yeah, that's right. Yes. So, oh, gee. Yeah, us too. We thought that we would be able, because it was created through, yeah. So, but because it was created in Eventbrite, wasn't sure whether or not it was still a VicUni one or not. So, yeah, but that's okay. Okay, so how many participants did we have? Really? Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
I think we can end this meeting.